Are we recording?
Yes.
All right. Here we are on The Blind Man in Black, and we have a very special guest. You're my first celebrity guest, Jon Huck,
Oh, this
comedian.
podcast is doomed. Celebrity
Comedian.
guest.
Yeah, you're a celebrity. You've been on Comedy Central.
Oh, uh-huh. Uh-huh. And what else,
Yeah.
buddy? What else?
And you've been on a number of commercials that national. I know that. I've seen you in a commercial. Wasn't one of them the post office?
I was dressed as a postal worker, yes, for a Dodgers, like when the gas station, the 76 gas station was giving away Dodger tickets, and it was like the dad threw up like playing 500. You ever play 500 when you were a kid?
No.
Well, it's like a bunch of people stand on one end and you either hit the ball or throw the ball up in the air, and whoever catches it gets 100 points, and you play until you get 500, and then if it bounces, you get so many points, and you catch it. It's an athletic game. So
Yeah, I was not athletic at all. And in fact, I remember, I think it was seventh grade. I remember the perfect like bully name. His name was J.P. Walker.
oh my God.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is the perfect bully name.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I think he's on my friend list now, so I better be careful. But he basically,
Well, is he still bullying people? I mean,
maybe
No,
I don't know if that stops. I'll tell you two stories. One is the story with him. So we're playing softball. I was, of course, the last person to be picked. I was chubby. This is like seventh grade, and I had this weird hormonal thing, and I grew like leg hair really early, like really Robin Williams type leg hair.
but did you
And
have hair everywhere else, or just
no, it was just leg hair. It's just mainly leg and ass hair.
weird, yeah.
And I was really self-conscious about it, and like I actually shaved my legs like from the groin down to the knee, but left the knee down. So it was just the calves were covered in hair, but
oh
not.
my God, so you had like knee-high
Yeah, I
like
don't.
hair socks.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know what that was about. I think it was a way of mitigating the issue of feeling too hairy, but I didn't want to be too feminine either. So
Well, maybe you were gonna try like wearing reverse shorts where you like cover from the knee down, but then you leave the thigh exposed.
yeah, but the thing is when you sit down, your thighs get exposed anyway. So it was a weird like look of like shorn thighs and just hairy knees and calves, and it was just weird.
Yeah, I gotta be
Anyways,
honest, I would make fun of that. Like,
yeah,
that's funny.
I would have too. It was weird. But I have problems. I have problems. And
No, you're good.
so anyway, so JP Walker, I'm about to get up to bat, and we're playing softball. I don't know what it was. And he said, "Hey, Snyder, pretend it's a cream puff." And I was like, I was literally like, fucking Christ, it's just like, I just can't, I don't like PE. I don't like sports. And then you're not making this any easier on my life. And I was just like, so fucking pissed that he had to make an issue that I was fat and like weird hair, I don't know how many people, my friend noticed the weird hair.
How could you not
shit.
notice that? Somebody who had hair from the kneecaps down? Like, come
Yeah.
on, dude.
Yeah, it was,
I'm gonna try adjusting this light. I feel like it's making me look super red.
yeah, it was, I don't know. I don't know what I was going through, but I was just having issues dealing with puberty. But anyway, let's get back to you.
Sure.
Now you're a comedian, you're an actor, producer of Punk'd, formerly. And
I've produced other stuff too.
What other stuff?
I just said I've produced other stuff too. But
okay, are you offended by the fact that was the only thing
you
I
just
mentioned?
made it sound like I've only like had one job in production, and it was that
no,
job. And then
no. I thought that was
that is the most known show that I've ever worked on. Yes, for sure.
Right. You're an actor in Dumbbells, which had Michael Madsen and who else was in that?
Daryl Hannah. Oh no, that was garbage. Michael Madsen, Billy Baldwin, Steven. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. He's in Scarface.
Oh yeah, the guy who played
I'm like pals with him, kind of. Not really, but
yeah, he was he was Al Pacino's like sidekick.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
can't remember his name either, but I know who you're talking about.
Steve,
We're going to get back to that, but I want to get back to the root of everything, the formative years of
Bauer,
what.
Stephen Bauer. Sorry, sorry,
There you
sorry.
go.
I had to get it out.
No, that's good. No, I'm glad you did. So the formative years, like what went wrong? I mean, comedians, the comedians. What was the thing? Comedy loves tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people have all kinds of, I would say, preconceived notions about that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, like my upbringing, I had a great family. I was loved. All my like, uh, I don't want to say demons because that sounds like too much, but like all my inner voices that like I was my own critic. Like my parents weren't hard on me. Do you know what I mean? They wanted me to play sports if I wanted to play sports. They wanted me to do what I wanted to do. They encouraged me to play guitar. They didn't like shit on anything or like try to take anything away from me. They just wanted me to figure it out. What did I like doing? Um, but I feel like everything that could have been like any negativity that was brought into my life was brought in my own head. You know what I mean? Like, well, I'm not good enough to do this. And I think it might, like, I'm sure if I went to therapy or something, that I would find out that with the way my dad told stories and the way he would joke around with his friends, he made himself the butt of the joke a lot. Like he was, you know what I mean? He wasn't like he did they busted each other's balls, but it wasn't like mean spirited, and a lot of times my dad was cool putting the joke back on himself. And I think I saw that, and I saw the way people reacted to it, which was positively, in my opinion. And then that kind of I started doing that. But then as a kid, like I assume as my dad would do it, he was like, well, I'm not I'm not really a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Like I'm just making myself an idiot in this story. It's a blown out version of whatever. But as a kid, you're doing it and you're like, after a certain point, you're like, maybe maybe I am an idiot. Like, you know what I mean? Like you start to kind of buy into this self-deprecation and also just kind of where I grew up and how I grew up. And I started drinking very early, and like I think a lot of that played negatively in my own brain. It just kind of helped kind of beat those feelings in, like, yeah, you're not that good. You better be funny, because what else are you going to do? You can't, if you can't, this girl's not going to look at you because you got abs. She's going to look at you because you told a joke and other people laughed and looked your way.
So a lot of it has to do with wanting to get laid. I think that's,
Well, when you're,
yeah.
14, 15-year-old boy, you don't know anything. Like, I mean, as a 35-year-old man, I had to look around and go, huh, what have I been doing? Like, so, yeah, I mean, a lot of it starts out, you want to impress girls, but I think, I don't know, I'd like to think that grows into being able to entertain other people and not understanding it at an early age, but like feeding off the idea that I could make a room full of people laugh more than I ever realized. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, oh, I like to party. I'll be funny at a party, but like, if you take away the party, if you just put those people in a room and they could still laugh, if like the same way as if I like fell into the bushes or something, you know what I mean? Then it was just that just feeds that, and I like really took to that early on, thinking it was kind of a way to like, and all my friends were funny. Like I grew up, like my friends are hilarious. You know what I mean? They make me laugh. My brother's really funny. My parents are funny. My dad was a goofball, you know.
Well, the reason that I wanted you to be on the podcast is because I feel like your humor, as you describe, is self-deprecating, and it's not mean-spirited, and it's not directed like some comedy can be directed and can be hurtful. I know my father, for example, he was a comedian, and I don't know you know, if his act on stage was mean-spirited. I don't think it was, but his comedy in life was. He was definitely mean-spirited to me. He was called me meathead, and uh, you know, uh,
Because that's how he was raised.
I don't know. I don't know how he was
Or
raised.
at least, I mean, he was a comedian for a long time. That's not something you just go, I'm a comedian for a day. So if he's doing that for a long time, he's out on the road, he's working with people back, you know, what, 60s, 70s, 50s?
Yeah, I mean, he
Like,
started out in the 50s and he did comedy, and he also sang. So he had a comedy act with his brother. So he started singing and then he did comedy. And the reason he did it is because it was just easy for him. It was just an easy way to make a living. And
I love hearing that. That's reassuring. It's just
no,
easy.
I'm being honest, because
Yeah,
that's,
no, yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it was. It wasn't, the truth of the matter is my father and my uncle could have gone a lot farther. They could have, because they had tons of opportunities, but my father turned them down. So I think he was happy with the routine of what he
Right.
was doing, but not the possibility, fear of either attempting to go further and failing, or fear of success. I don't know what it was, but it was detrimental. But let's get back to you. That was one of the things that I was really impressed by, is you're kind of, you almost had a comedic code of sticking to self-deprecation. Is
Early
that,
on, yeah, early on for sure, because again, in my head, as I'm writing these jokes, it's like, who am I to make fun of somebody else? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm lucky I wasn't hit by a car walking home last night. You know what I mean? Like, I'm lucky I made it home. Like, I'm an idiot in my own head. So for me to go, hey, look at this guy's haircut, I'm like, no, 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 look at my haircut. You know what I mean? It was like, I noticed a lot of, it is a different, it's just a different style, but like at a certain point, you have to kind of move away from that, because nobody wants to watch an hour of, I mean, at least me wanted to watch an hour of, I'm an idiot. You know, like you got to give some examples, and you can keep coming back to it, but like through examples and through stories and through, you know, relatable things that happen to you that everyone else is like, oh yeah, yeah, that happens all the time, you know. I just think it's like, it's, and now that I'm married, it's like that I just put out a, I don't know, you call it like an album, CD, whatever.
compromise maturity?
Yeah, Compromise Maturity in April of this year, and it had been 2011 was my first CD. So it had been since 2011 that I'd put out material like this, like in a form that you could purchase, you know. And I mean, the two albums are so different. You know what I mean? Like the first one is like, I pissed my pants, ha ha, cocaine, ha ha ha. You know what I mean? Like kind of like for 45, 50 minutes, you know. And I make fun of my brother, which is super easy because one, he's on board with it, and two, he he has it coming. I mean, some of the shit he does is ridiculous, but um
Can you give an example of the car, riding in the car with them?
oh well, here's the truth behind that joke is that somebody we both know said I'm not a boob guy. And I, at that time, like I started telling the joke as him in the joke, and then I had a couple other things with my brother, um, that like him farting in the car, and me going, "What are you?" He keeps farting. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he literally looks at me and goes, "I'm crop dusting." And I'm like, "What? The windows are up. We're in a car." I go, "No, you're not." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm crop dusting." And I'm like, "Dude, have you ever seen a plane dust crops?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay. Does the plane fly over the crops and drop all the chemicals out, trailing behind it, or does the plane land directly on top of the crops and then just shoot all the chemicals out at once?" Like, he was like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "You're just Hindenburging, dude. You're just shitting farts into my seat. Stop it, you know." But with that other joke, with that I'm not a boob guy joke from the first album, it was that, and when I said, I have a joke where I say I saw Weird Al at the Improv,
Mhm.
and I was going to call my brother, and my brother is not very bright. So I said, you got to get down here, dude. Weird Al is down here. And his response was, huh? Yankovic or Pacino? And I was like, yeah, Weird Al Pacino is down here, dude. He's got an accordion and he's shouting out lines to Son of a Woman in Scarface. You're the first person I called. But that actually, what happened was I was at the Improv bar again with our mutual acquaintance and our mutual friend. And Weird Al sat like 3 seats away from me with his wife at the bar. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I'm a huge Weird Al fan. And I'm like, my brother would love this. And Matt goes, hey, you should call your brother. And I go, why? So we can go, huh? Weird Al Pacino? And I like kind of threw it out and threw it away. Like, just an idiot. And like a couple seconds go by, he's staring at me. He goes, are you going to write that down? And I was like, huh? He goes, dude, that's funny. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess it is kind of funny. And this was still back when I like didn't have a voice. I wrote it on a piece of paper, you know?
Right.
But yeah, so like when a friend would do something dumb, I now incorporate it in with Jeff. Like it now becomes something my brother did because it's easier to have that one guy you can keep kind of putting stuff on. For the most part, my brother
Like
does.
Donnie.
Yes. Donnie's not Jeff, but Donnie is his own kind of culmination of a bunch of people that I've met named Donnie.
Well, it's in this, I'm referring to a bit on Compromise Maturity, which is on Spotify and iTunes. So I highly recommend that you listen to it. It's hilarious. And, but anyway, finish what you're saying about Donnie, and then I want to go back. I have something I want to get to. Go ahead.
Well, it was that started with like, I have so many friends named Dan or Danny who are like super just reliable guys. And the whole joke started, I was like, you got to be careful when you name people one letter. Because I was doing a D-A-N-N-Y, D-O-N-N-Y. I'm like, one vowel change could be a different life for somebody, you know? And then I kind of go on to explain, if you ever met a Danny, they're dependable, they're solid, they own their own roofing company, they got a new truck, you know, they got a beautiful wife, they got twin daughters. This guy's like helps you get the mail when you're out of town. He helps pick your kids up. He was best man at your wedding.
That sounds like Danny Bonaducci.
No, see, I mean, there are exceptions to every rule, dude. There are exceptions. But I do think, like, my whole point to it in the end, after I'd say, like, you know, Donnie, I just go off on people named Donnie, essentially. And then in the end, it wraps itself up nicely with, we have a president that not a lot of people enjoy, whose name is Don. So at the end, basically the punch is, don't be a Donnie. You can't be anything. I talk about how it's a state of mind. Like Danny, you could be named Donnie, but still behave like a Danny. You can. It's possible.
Right. No, you know, it's funny though, but Donnie, because I was thinking about somebody I know, Donnie, and I'm related to a Donnie. And I was like, this is very close to the Donnie you're describing.
Every time I would tell that joke, I would have at least one woman walk out of the show at the end and say to me, my sister married a Donnie. And I would always say, like, in name or in you know, action. And a lot of times they would say both. I'm like, I'm sorry. She's like, phew, and they would just walk out. Like nobody was ever like, one time I had a group of dudes at a table and they all start laughing. And I look over and I go, let me guess. One of you is named Donnie. And they all start laughing and they go, guess which one? And I immediately pointed at the dude who I had to have been him. And they fell off their chairs, dude. They were like, yeah, his name is Donnie and he's a fucking idiot. Like, and he was laughing. He's like, yeah, I've almost set myself on fire. Like he just had all kinds of stupid shit to say after the show, but in a very funny, like, again, I don't do that to be like, hey, dumbass. It's at that point, if you're yelling out to me and you're laughing about it, you're in on it. You get it. You're not going to be offended. You're not going to be mad. And I saw a video actually. I was telling that joke for a long time, and I saw a video of a comedian at a coffee shop in like some festival in Canada. Barely anybody in there. Dude starts doing a bit on guys named Jeff. Mm-hmm. It was kind of funny. You know, my brother's name is Jeff, and I was like, Jeff is a funny name. You know, you go, hey, I work at a carnival. My name is Jeff. Like, Jeff is a funny name.
And they had a Saturday Night Live skit. I think it was with Bill Hader, where he would just go, Jeff. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So But this guy's telling this joke in this video, and a dude gets up, and his name is Jeff, and he walks to the stage and he punches this comedian in the face.
Oh God.
And I'm like, wait, what? So I repost the video, and I'm like, maybe Jeff is the new Donnie. Like, I mean, of all the Donnies I've made fun of to their face at comedy clubs, not one has ever gotten up, walked to the stage, and punched me in the face. There hasn't even been like an inkling of violence in it. You know what I mean? And
Right.
There have been people named Donnie, which gave me a tag in the joke. Like, people yell out, "Hey, my name is Donnie." I'm like, of course it is. You yelled out in the middle of a show. You're an idiot. Like, and that just plays right into it.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it's fairly lighthearted, you know, until the
Right.
end. It's like probably the most political thing I do, and then it's over.
So going back to the roots, I want to go back. I feel like on the album Compromise Maturity, there is a clue as to the roots of your comedy, and it's the American cheese bit.
That's a good call. That is a good call. That bit's been around for a while. I was finally able to. It's so weird, because that's a bit that like started to develop as I was recording my first album, and then didn't put it on there because it was just not finished. And then, right, because it's on this new one. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So anyway, it's very old, but the story is legitimate. I did see my dad freak out on a piece of American cheese. You know, I put all the rest of the words in his mouth. You know what I mean? But that was a joke I didn't write till after my dad had passed away. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I told it kind of all the way through with family members in the audience. I was in Madison, Wisconsin, and at the Comedy on State. And it's a pretty famous club for having incredible audiences. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you walk out of there with a very false sense of who you are as a comedian, because you're like, they loved everything I did, I must be a genius. And then the next place you go, they're like, you suck. You're like, but it's the same material.
Right.
But they're a very good audience. College town, they're just a fun crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I told that joke about my dad, and I could, above all the laughter, because I was getting laughs, I could hear my mom and my aunt. They have like this super distinct, like, just, I don't want to call it a cackle because they're not witches or anything, but like, it's a very distinct and loud laugh, and they were dying. And I was like, I wish at that moment, I was like, I wish I would have written this when my dad was alive. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just so he could see that he was a part of it, even if it was like a funny, negative kind, not negative, but like, it doesn't paint him as like a super patient or calm guy. You know what I mean? And
Well,
he was not.
that bit resonated with me personally. Because if you could do the bit just so it's
I
short,
talk about
right?
how I talk about how dad anger is a real thing. It's a legitimate disease. It affects 99% of people 99% of men with children, and it's basically the symptoms of dad anger are irrational anger at inanimate objects. And I know dad anger is real because I've seen it firsthand. And then I tell the story about how I was 7 years old and I could see my dad in the kitchen, my father getting into a fight, like a physical altercation with a piece of individually wrapped American cheese. And it's just it escalated so quickly. He was like, fucking fuck, God, fuck. And he rips it in half, and like, he just kind of like flicked it on the counter. But in my story, I say he threw it on the floor, and then he left the kitchen. And I was literally watching this like, what is going on? Now I'm 7 years old. I'm like, oh my God, dad hates cheese, everybody. Like Steve Martin with he hates these cans.
Cans.
Stay away from the cans. So, and then basically I say, but I realized that wasn't about cheese, that anger, you know what I mean? That piece of cheese represented my father's dreams, and his clenched fists represented what me and my brother had done to them. So he's like, I could have been a National Geographic photographer, fucking kids. And then I say, I want to love cheese forever, so I don't think I'm going to have any children.
See, that one resonated with
right?
me because it happens to me every day. Like, in the sense of, going through blindness and deafness is so fucking aggravating and irritating, and not to mention inconvenient. And
That's the mild. How could you even use that word? Inconvenient.
yeah, it's extremely inconvenient.
This is
And
irritating.
and you know, it's miserable sometimes. And so when during the day, when there's something like you just want to enjoy something, just like, you know, like your dad was trying to enjoy a sandwich, right?
Yes,
It's
just a
that
piece of
simple thing of
cheese.
I just want to enjoy this one fucking thing. That's it. And it doesn't even work. And when you're like, my life is miserable, I can't enjoy a fucking sandwich. I can't open this cheese so I can enjoy the sandwich. I get that. I mean, I don't know if that's what it was,
Ah,
but
dude, no. Well, it's relatable on. Look, even I've had that. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you're trying to open a package that you like trying to open a pair of industrial strength scissors that the packaging, you need a pair of industrial strength scissors to open, and you're like, it's maddening that it's in there and you could use that thing to get the thing out, but you can't get in. It's that kind of frustration that I think everybody's been through at one point in their life.
but there's like almost an over, there's like, when it goes too far, like it's like you don't have to get that upset about that. It's not worth it. You know, there's the underlying thing underneath that's what is that real anger is about. And um so I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you feel like that? Do you
Well,
really?
I mean, that's a good point because I used to react like that as well to things. You know what I mean? Like one thing goes wrong, and you're like, "Fuck it, throw the whole thing out." You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I, I've I, I've had that. I don't know. It took me a long time to get to a place where I'm like, see something, think about that thing, think about why I think what I do about that thing, and then react to it.
Hmm.
And when you do all that before you react to something, your reaction is usually, oh, okay. Because there's no, if something happened, it happened. You can't go back in time and make it not happen. So sitting there and going, God, why did this happen is useless.
Yeah.
It's happened. Now, is it something you need to deal with? Is it something you can walk away from? Is it something that's going to affect you? Now you have to make decisions. But if you make those decisions while you're present in the moment, understanding, you know, kind of looking at your emotions, like, why am I so angry at this piece of cheese? Why am I so angry at this packaging? Why am I so angry at this microwave? Why am I so angry? You know, oh, I'm not. I'm not angry at cheese. I'm angry because my boss is a dickhead. I'm angry because I have to go downtown every day and I hate it. I'm
Yeah.
angry because I got two kids here that are pains in my asses. You know what I mean? Like I'm having a bad day. But I don't know that that kind of thinking existed for my dad to ever find out about. Meaning, yes, it existed. Yes, Ram Dass was alive, you know, when my dad was alive. But there was just where he grew up, how he grew up. It, I had to find it on my own. You know what I mean? It was never shown to me as a kid or anything like, hey, you should be more present because it's going to help you in the long. It was, dude, get a job, get money. What are you doing? Get health insurance, get a car that doesn't fucking break down every 10 minutes.
Hmm.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, I hear that voice in my head too. So let's talk about your influences. What are some of your early comedic influences that kind of stay with you today?
Well, I was big, I mean, very, very seriously, the way my dad told the story was something that I feel like I got from him, and I'm very grateful for that. If it's probably the one thing, like I'm also anal retentive. I collect weird shit sometimes, and like I'm getting better at that. But like I have a lot of his other.
Motorhead posters?
What's that?
Motorhead posters?
I don't collect them. I still have one.
Okay, okay.
I was able to put it in the bathroom. That's
Okay.
where a lot of my pictures go.
Right.
But that was a reference to the garbage man getting all the Motorhead posters.
Right. Yeah.
I love it,
Yeah.
dude. How many you listened to that a couple times then?
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I listened to it twice, and I love it. It's a great album, and I love the first album too because I love that story about Germany. I remember, you know, see for those listening, I met John through my roommate Matt Dittman, who owns Crawford's on
was the same
Pico.
guy I was talking about who said the thing about Weird Al, who said the thing about I'm not a boob guy. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
And Matt and I we went to Cal Arts together, and we were in the acting program there. And anyway, so we became roommates. And I remember Matt was so fucking funny, and I was, he was so hilarious. I wish you could have seen him in our acting classes because he was so fucking funny. His characters, he used to have this great character that would always make me just roll on the floor every time he did it. And people thought, I mean, my other, friends thought, what's wrong with him? He's laughing so hard at this. We used to have this thing as this dock worker. Have you ever heard him do that thing? And he's like,
Yeah.
meat hooks and pornography, I mean, I don't, it just, whatever it was just fucking funny how he did it. And
Well,
maybe,
dude, I mean, I saw him do stand up and I forced him to be my friend.
right.
I was like, hey, you should give me a call. We should hang out and go get beers. And he was like, yeah, okay. And then like I saw him at another show and I was like, hey, bro, you never called me. He's like, okay. And then like I saw him at a third show and I go, hey, put my business card in your wallet. And then I saw him at a fourth show and I go, dude, what the fuck is your phone number? And then I just started calling him until he hung out with me. I was like,
and I know it's difficult to get a hold of Matt. Everybody, I mean, I've been in the room with him where people are calling me, and he's listening to messages. He's like, dude, I gotta fucking call him back.
yeah.
And then you just go outside and have a cigarette.
Doesn't do it.
And, but anyway, so Matt, Matt, I encouraged Matt really hard. I wanted him to be a comedian because I knew he was so funny. And so eventually, I think he had somebody else who was encouraging him as well. And he started doing comedy, and then you met him. And then I met you when he was doing comedy at the Derby, when he started that room. It was around like 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. And that's how I met you. And I just remember that was crazy. Like there was Gabriel Iglesias there. There was Al Madrigal. There was Kyle Kinane, Matt Bronger. It was a magical fucking place
that came through that. Yeah. It was a fun room, man. I remember somebody saying, "Ooh, you're really comfortable here, huh?" Because I would just get up on stage and do whatever. Like other shows, like I was like crazy prepared, but he did that show every Monday.
Yeah.
And every Monday I would come home from work and be like, "Okay, what am I going to do tonight?" And then I would like,
Hey, is your mic a little bit? I can't hear you as well.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sorry, I might have been talking. I can try to bring it out here. How's that? Not good?
Yeah, I think so. It just sounds a little low. I don't know. Maybe my hearing is getting worse. I don't know.
I'm not. I was talking kind of soft, but
okay.
But I can talk louder, I guess.
No, that's good. That's good right there.
Okay.
So yeah, let's talk about like some of your influences.
Well, early on, my dad showed me a lot of Laurel and Hardy. Honestly, that was the first thing I can remember, like some cartoons, some early Tom and Jerry, but then like Laurel and Hardy, and that sort of seeing adults laugh. Like Laurel and Hardy's funny. I mean, I can't. If people don't like it, I get confused because I'm like, if you just watch it, like I laugh still to this day. Like same with Three Stooges. Like I know it sounds like cavemanish, but like when Moe slaps Larry, I laugh every time because it's always like, what was that? And then he just cracks him. It's like it really just it resonates. I don't know how else to explain it except that I find it funny because I've seen how people react, and I'm basing that on when I said people like my dad's friends, like how they would watch and laugh, So I'd say that kind of comedy was a very early influence because I also had a younger brother he's only 2 years younger than me. So we were friends, you know what I mean? And we saw these things together, and no one else had ever, like people we knew, our kids that we knew had never seen Laurel and Hardy, had never seen Three Stooges. So like we've had this kind of, I don't know, not secret, but it was like it was this thing that like our humor developed much differently than our very good friends from that area that we are still friends with today,
Yeah, because Laurel and Hardy is not of your era at all.
No, not at all,
Yeah.
And my dad co-founded the Laurel and Hardy tent that's out in Chicago. Like he was big into the whole thing. But when he passed away, a lot of my friends their comments to me were like, I got texts and stuff, you know, very nice. But a lot of people that I hadn't heard from in a very long time were like, hey, I still remember just coming to your basement to watch Laurel and Hardy when we were kids. And it's like, people I know now have never seen it, Laurel and Hardy, you know, which is crazy to me because they're on YouTube, they're everywhere. You can find Laurel and Hardy if you want to find Laurel and Hardy. But yeah, so it was definitely a unique comedy to see as a child in the late 70s, early 80s, you know. And from there, you know, I like stuff like Naked Gun, man. Like when I in 8th grade, me and my friend Glenn took these 2 chicks to see Naked Gun in the theater. And from the beginning, from the credits, I started laughing.
Right.
This girl, 5 minutes into the movie, goes, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I said, okay. Her and her friend left. I don't even notice.
Was her name Rachel James Snyder?
Why did she walk out on you when you were seeing Naked Gun?
She just, I was, we were just flipping through channels and I was like, oh, Naked Gun's on. She's like, ugh, such a dude flick. I'm like, all right, well.
We're watching it. No, this chick, they went into the lobby. They didn't come back the whole movie because we were laughing so hard. And I just literally, me and my friend sitting two seats apart because there were girls in the middle at one point where I'm just like crying. Like I'm laughing so hard. And then it's almost like I forgot about what an influence this was on me. And I don't know how it was an influence except for, I don't know, but with the new movie that came out, Bill and Ted Face the Music, I went back and rewatched the first 2 Bill and Ted movies. And that first one, when that first one came out, I was in 8th grade. I saw that movie in the theater probably 3 or 4 times. Then I went on my class trip to DC. I talked like that for the entire trip, like I was in that movie, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
How did that go over?
Oh my God, you can imagine how annoying that was. Like I can't, but one, quoting lines from movies got me attention. Right. I knew the lines, like people would try to quote, like they wouldn't get the lines where I would know, again, I felt like maybe looking back, I feel like I had an acute sense of comedic timing, what comedy is, how to make things funny, pauses, falling down, slapstick, stuff like that, when it's funny, when it's not. I had a librarian in 1st grade say to me, you have to know there's a line, you know, you can be funny, but you don't want to be annoying. And I was like, well, right now I want to be annoying because that's funny to me. but only at certain times. But I understood what she was saying. It's like, don't always have to be on. You know what I mean? You don't always have to be cutting it up and busting people's chops and like, you know.
You mean like you folks look wonderful from here?
Yeah, like that. You folks look wonderful from here. The place looks so wonderful from here.
You know, when I went to LA to visit you in 2017, I was sitting with Trevor.
Is that how long ago it was?
Yeah, it was. And I was sitting with Trevor in Los Feliz at some restaurant, and I was doing that joke, and I like knocked over a bottle of Tabasco sauce on some guy's nice Italian leather shoes. And Trevor was embarrassed. He was pretty embarrassed. Like, fucking dude.
I mean, it's kind of par for the course at that point. You and Trevor out somewhere. If something can be spilled, it will be spilled. Yeah.
Luckily, he was able to keep it together with me. He usually probably in that situation would have picked me up and been embarrassed and left with me like I was a toddler, but it was okay. Anyway, so yeah, let's go back. What about the comedians? What were the comedians that influenced you?
I mean, the first stand-up comic I ever saw that I really remember was Dana Carvey on. There was this show called Turkey Television, which was like clips. It was on Nickelodeon. It was like a clip show, kind of like here's the fish heads video, you know, here's this random thing, here's this thing. And it was like basically YouTube back in the day. And then all of a sudden a clip of Dana Carvey doing that chopping broccoli bit that he did on SNL,
right?
But doing it on a stage, like performing. And I was like, what is this? Like, what's this guy doing? And it was hilarious. And then I would say Bill Cosby at the time himself came out in like 83 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah,
And
that was a brilliant.
I remember like my dad was into George Carlin, but we couldn't get too much. I couldn't hear too much of it because they would keep it from me. But Bill Cosby himself was the first time, like as a family, all 4 of us were in the living room watching this, and all 4 of us laughing. Like,
Right.
it was all very relatable to just being a kid, to having parents, to the lies, to the things you get caught doing, everything. And he made it very, very funny.
Yeah.
And from there, me and my brother started collecting Bill Cosby tapes. Then, as I got older,
You're still collecting Bill Cosby tapes.
my favorite comedian. I have posters of it. But that led to, well, not led to, but 8th grade, I saw Raw. I saw Raw, Eddie Murphy Raw, before I saw Delirious.
Right. I thought you were going to say that led to me exploring roofies. Or
that led to me being a date rapist for 70 years. No, that led. I saw Eddie Murphy Raw in 8th grade, and I must have watched that 1,000 times. I knew every word. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. It was insane to me. And then I went back and watched Delirious, and I was like, oh my God, this is even better. And then from there, I got into George Carlin, Richard Pryor, and then I feel like, again, none of my friends were doing this, but me and my brother would watch like Evening at the Improv on A&E, Stand Up Spotlight on VH1, the A-List. There was like a bunch of Comedy Central used to be a section on the Ha Network. It used to be like a clip thing on the Ha Network, and it became its own network.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started showing more and more stand-up, and we took it all in, like, which is crazy because now, like, I've walked into writers' rooms on TV shows I was working on, and guys that I would see back in the day on the A-List or on Stand Up Spotlight or wherever, that me and my brother would quote and laugh at, who, because no internet, we couldn't follow. We didn't know what they were doing. We would see these clips and that would be it. I've walked into writers' room and like, oh my God, Hugh Fink? He's like, yeah, how you doing? I'm like, dude, I used to do your entire baseball bit over and over again, because he's like, oh, that's great. Dude gave me a tag for a joke. He was at the Comedy Store one night. I was like, it's mind blowing when the people that you sort of watched growing up are still at it and around and still funny and still relevant and then are willing to talk to you. And you're like, oh, this is awesome. I don't know, enjoyable. But like, from those early kind of like the classics of who you would expect me to get into, just randos like Dennis Wolfberg. If you've ever seen that guy, he was I think he's passed away, but he was a comic in the 80s. From substitute teaching to being a comic, dude, he was just this older guy, but his movements, everything about him was funny. Like Jeremy Hotz was really funny to me when I was younger. And he's still around, very relevant. And then, high school, I find out about guys like, I'm trying to think who were like, well, Brian Regan. I remember getting that CD. That was really funny to me.
What about when you first did your first stand-up? How'd that go? And where was it? And how old are you?
Technically, the first time I got on stage would be, I was out in LA. I moved out here in 99, so this would be 2000, end of 2000, probably November. And I went to the Ha Ha Cafe. I tried to do an open mic at a restaurant on Sunset, and I was so nervous that I got blackout drunk. And then
did you go up though?
No, I was writing material at work about pooping.
Okay.
And then I drank 12 beers when I got home. And then we went to the bar, me and my roommate, my buddy Tim. We went to the bar where they were having the show. And then I started drinking rum and cokes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the host went on. And I guess I turned around, I was like, boo. Like I tried heckling her, and she was like, sir, right. Betty Ford is out the door and to the left. And everyone laughed. And my buddy was like, I'm getting you out of here. And like, I blacked out, but I woke up the next day and I looked at my buddy and I go, hey, did I go up last night? He goes, dude, you are a huge fucking asshole. I was like, oh, what? So after that,
I wonder what it had been like had you gone up.
a nightmare, dude. An absolute nightmare. For everyone there, everyone,
Right.
including me, and horribly embarrassing. And
Right.
I'm glad I didn't go up. The next time I went up was an open mic at the Ha Ha Cafe in North Hollywood. And that was, you know, I had a notebook. I was going through it. There was an improv troupe that had been rehearsing, sitting in the back, and like 2 homeless people and some comics. And like, it was a very strange, you know, my first open mic. I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know any better. So I'm just up there like, oh, look, bus directions. I get done, and this kid from the improv group is like, oh, man, how long have you been doing comedy? I go, oh, it was my first time. He goes, you're really funny. I'm like, oh. So in my head, right, I'm like, oh, I'm a natural. And then I go do a couple more open mics at the Ha Ha, and then Jack, the owner, is like, okay, and this is my naiveness, my naivete. The guy, he goes, dude, you're great. You're really funny. Do you think you could get some people out to see you? So I'm like, I'm working in production. I've got all these people who are like, oh, they hear that I'm, you know how it is when you first start getting into comedy, people are like, oh my God, yeah, I got to check it out. I'll check it out. And everyone's real supportive until they see how shitty you are at it. But
yeah, I made the mistake of inviting a young woman that I was interested in for my first stand-up. And
terrible idea.
Oh, I know. I think I was just so full of, I had been performing. I had just finished doing 12th Night. I was acting. I did this little avant-garde piece. So I was feeling on a roll. So it's like, I got this comedy. I got this. And that was a huge mistake. She didn't even stay.
For your set?
No, she left like before. I don't even think she stayed. And I did not talk to her once after that. Like
That's
I
awesome.
didn't. Yeah. Yeah.
Clean
That's
break, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stand-up comedy, the lady repeller.
So what was that? So you got laughs on the first time?
Yeah, I got chuckles, you know what I mean? And then, but then I went after a few open mics feeling like, oh, I'm the best in this room in my head, you know, not realizing that there's way more outside that room. But
Right.
He asked me if I could get people out. I said, sure. He goes, well, I'm going to give you a spot on a Saturday night show. So it was like my first real spot, right? Not a Wednesday, not a Monday, Saturday night. So I tell everybody I work with. I was working on a show called Temptation Island 2. I tell everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell all my friends. My buddy picks me up. We go to the club. We get out. The marquee says Latino Comedy All-Star Night, right? I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Place is packed with fans of Latino comedy.
That's your demographic.
Yeah, I'm the only white guy on the bill. But
Right.
I was like, whatever, I don't care. I'll, you know, in my head, I'm like, I'm a comedian. I'm funny. I'll perform wherever, you know,
Right.
Dumb mother.
Did you adjust your material at all?
Yeah, because he goes, hey, first of all, 40 people came out to see me.
Mm-hmm.
40 people from my work were
Wow.
in the back. They filled the back of the Ha Ha Cafe. So when the owner saw that I had 40 people there, he didn't want to put me up early and then have all those people leave.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, we're going to put you up, because originally I was going to go on at 8:05. Show starts at 8. So I get there at 7:50 and I pound 3 beers because I'm like, I got to be lubed up to go on stage.
Yeah.
Then he sees how many people I brought, and he's like, hey, well, we're going to put you a little bit later in the show. So then I drink 3 more beers. He's like, we're going to keep moving you back. So by the time I go on, I'm hammered. And he's like, okay, we're putting you up. There's a scout for Leno in the audience. And then he just kind of pushes me out there. And I'm like, what? And I don't remember any jokes. The room kind of gets quiet. My buddy was recording me with a little cassette recorder thing, like a tiny. I get up there, and I think I said, my first joke was, I bet you're wondering what Chris Elliott has to do with Latino comedy. And that got a laugh.
Right.
And then quiet. And then this girl goes, you're white. And I go, Mom? And that got a laugh. And then nothing. I mean, this was my 5th or 6th time on stage. I hadn't done more than 3 to 4 minutes.
Right.
They left me on stage for 15 minutes, dude.
Oh, really?
Dude, it might have been
Were
11.
you supposed to have 5?
Yeah, dude. They gave me a regular spot when they were telling me that it was just in like a small,
Right.
I wasn't ready for 11 minutes. I wasn't ready for anything past 5, you know? Afterwards, I'm sweating, right? I'm sweating. And I keep touching my nose. So everyone's like, oh, you shouldn't do comedy when you're coked up. I'm like, I'm not coked up. I'm just touching my face. Like I'm going insane. Like I'm terrible at this. So I go outside after my set and I have a cigarette because I'm just like, fuck this, you know? But then the first person out is my buddy who I went there with. And he was like, well, that's over. And I thought he meant me doing comedy. And I was like, yeah, I guess I shouldn't do that anymore. He goes, no. That's over. You're never going to do that bad again. You got it over. It's over with. You, no matter what you do, you can never do that bad again. And I kind of started to think like, yeah, I'd have to really, I'd have to go up there and like poop onto my own face somehow to do that bad again. Like
it's like Patton Oswalt's his worst time where he had a diarrhea and a horrible experience.
Like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
It's never going to be that again. And it wasn't. I mean, I've had 30 minutes of silence while I was on stage, but I was still doing my material and I still understood. I had the wherewithal to know that they didn't like me and that I was paid for a certain amount. You know what I mean? Like that first time though, I was like, and that to me is the tell if you're really into it.
Right.
Like, I did that. I ate my dick in front of people I work with, girls I liked, people I knew, like, but I still like the next week was like, oh, okay, I better find an open mic and get out there. You know what I mean? Like, whereas I've seen people who I've seen people get really fortunate and have relatives in comedy or whatever, and then get really good spots at really good clubs where the audiences are great and think that they're great.
Yeah.
And then invite people to see them at regular bar shows in LA when you really have to kind of be on your game. You can't phone that shit in. And that was it. Never to do comedy again. You know what I mean? Like all it takes for some people is like one bad experience. I don't know.
So did you feel a sense of almost fearlessness after that happened? It was like, was it, did you feel like, were you easing into a comfort zone after that? Or was it, what did it feel like after that?
I just remember thinking like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. Like I didn't have like, I didn't like think to myself like, oh, I'm fearless, you know, but I remember a couple times people like, oh, you'll go up anywhere, won't you? I'm like, oh yeah. Like just so hungry for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't even the social aspect of it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't mind hanging out with other comics. I still don't. I like it. You know, it's fun. But that wasn't like why I would go out and do my set and go home. You know what I mean? Because I was either writing or like partying with idiots that weren't comedians, you know?
Right.
So I like, again, I don't want to say like I was fearless, but like I would just, wherever I could get stage time, you know, and it when I hear like veteran comics now say to younger comics, like get up as much as you can, whenever you can, wherever you can. No one told me that. No one said that's how it's done. I didn't have the internet. You know what I mean? Like I like Chuckle Monkey was the website, and it was like super blocked. It was like not what the internet is today. So you're going back LA Weekly, you know, you're looking at ads. Where's the open mics? Where can I go? You know, trying to hang
Next
out
to
at
the
other
hookers.
shows, dude, which was everywhere because I lived in Echo Park, you know, Silver Lake, but I think what happens is you do open mics, and then from there, someone goes, "Hey, I book a show. Could you get, you know, for me, it was bringer shows at first. Like, could you get 3 people out? Can you get 4 people out to a show?" And a couple people I contacted after a certain amount of shows, I would show up by myself and they'd be like, is anyone coming to see you? I go, no. Should I leave? And they'd be like, no, you can still go on. And they would usually put me on at the end. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I like the bringer shows, I was still doing bringer shows, but I wasn't bringing people. because I had 3 or 4 friends that hung out with me all the time. And after a while, they don't want to see the same 7 minutes, and they don't give a shit about the other terrible comedians, and they don't want to be there, you know? So I would just go by myself. And that was being at a club by myself is so much less pressure. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about entertaining anybody. If they're having a good time, it's like, I can have fun. I can go on stage. I can enjoy myself. I can go home.
When was the moment that that laugh that you felt like that's what I'm looking for? That moment. Was there a joke that you were like a time when you just felt like the timing was perfect, everything was just perfect? That moment when you first had that major laugh. When was that?
I don't know that I can pinpoint a major laugh, but I remember when I wrote a joke about Maxim magazine and how I broke up with a girl and my brother got me a subscription to it, and he was like, yeah, Maxim magazine is a magazine for guys like us. And I'm like, no, it's not, dude. There was an article in Maxim magazine is like how to date a Playboy playmate. What? Dude, look at me. I don't need that article. And I would say something like, if you look like the cross between Chris Elliott and Tom Green, or if you drive a Ford Focus there's a list of things that were wrong with me, essentially. As like, maybe Playmate's a little out of your league, but here's an article about how to fuck the crazy homeless lady at the end of your block. And then I would say, like, she's, dancing for nickels and I got a boner in a pocket full of nickels or whatever. But like, I remember that joke.
That sounds like a song.
Pocket full boner or a pocket full of nickels.
Yeah, that's a great song.
Yeah, so I just remember, like, kind of once I constructed that joke, I was like, oh, okay. And like, when I first formed a big closer, or my opener used to be, oh my God, is it hot in here? Am I just chubby and coked up? And that got a laugh.
I remember that. Yeah.
That got a laugh for 4 years or however long I did that fucking joke. But I remember, like, once I started figuring out, like, okay, I like to have a quick opener to hook them, and it's not like I invented a formula. There are different ways to do it. Everyone does it differently. The way my voice developed, excuse me, is quick up front, like get them, make fun of myself real quick so that they're on my side. They're like, oh, you're fucking sad. Look at you. And then when I make fun of other people, I can go, what do I know? And then they go, right, remember from earlier, you're a dumbass. And then they're like, they're more along for the ride if I do it that way. So I guess, and that's after trying shit that, I think is funny that doesn't work or that doesn't fit my character or who I am, like I remember I was doing a joke about something and I called somebody a cunt in the joke, which immediately takes everybody out of the joke. They're like, dude, what? Like, that isn't the funny part. Like, and I was working with Henry Phillips and he goes, you should just say pussy. And I go, and then I did it. And I was like, oh yeah, because that's not me, because that's not how, if I was out at a bar, that's not what I would say. You know what I mean? Like, so I think trying to be against who I am doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so important. That was the thing when, I was thinking about comedy and it's like, I felt like you have to be yourself and I didn't know who I was.
And again, I don't think, well, that's an interesting point, but I also think there are people who have been very successful, not really being themselves, never revealing anything about themselves.
Right.
And doing, like, I know that a comic I saw once, fairly, popular actor, voice actor, whatever, but like, no, they were just jokes, meaning like he would do a joke about his girlfriend. Then 3 jokes later, he would do a joke about his wife.
Right.
Then 4 jokes later, he would talk about how his girlfriend, you know what I mean? Like, you knew that they didn't happen to him. You knew that they weren't real. There was nothing. They were like funny in the sense that, like, I could take those jokes and tell you, and you'd be like, oh, like a street joke almost,
Right.
Not that they were street jokes, but like, I don't know. But I like people to know, or at least give the impression that everything I'm saying is legit. Like, it happened to me. So I like to sort of build and work towards a big kind of story at the end. You know what I mean? So start quick, not necessarily one-liners, but like quick anecdotes, real quick stuff, jokes, you know, and then move on to like from myself to making fun of my family to eventually getting into being married, and like where a large chunk of my material came from for that last album is marriage, you know. But
can you talk a little bit about your marriage? How's that going?
Sure. Great. She's working on a TV show in Las Vegas right now. This whole thing has been a little bit, you know, trying in the sense that she was working from home. So that takes away a chunk of the apartment and makes it an office. And then I got to be in another room. And then, you know, it's just a lot. And then I'm trying to do stuff from home as well, self-tapes and, you know, Zoom shows and whatever else is going on.
Are you doing any cornfield comedy?
I'm not, man. I haven't. I've been asked a couple times. I've turned it down. I don't think I'm ready to do that yet. I think I'm kind of waiting. Like I had solid dates from March to December. Like I was going to be out of town at least one weekend a month from March to December, and all that went away. So I did a couple of the Zoom shows. I did not care for them. Mm-hmm. It's just there's no connection. You know what I mean? You feed off the laughs. I don't feed off somebody blankly staring at a computer screen and wondering if they can hear me or if I'm muted or, you know, it was not for me. But again, if this is something that keeps going, like I'm going to do a fundraiser for St. Jude's. So I'll record some comedy and give them you know what I mean, for them to run, but it won't be like a live thing. And it's for something. It's for a cause, you know. But what was my point?
Well, we got into this because I asked you about marriage.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, you know, like I said, what's funny for me is taking things that are, again, like me 10 years ago would blow a gasket on, you know, for no reason. And kind of getting back to that place while I'm on stage of just funny things, you know what I mean? Like now I look at the things that my wife will do that are different than the way I do things, or that are unique, or in my opinion, there's a better way to do it or whatever. And I just kind of laugh, you know. There's a very, what's the saying, is like, I'd rather be happy than right.
Right.
I'm not looking to like tell her how to do something or like make her change the way she does it, you know what I mean? But if I think that it's relatable enough that other people are going to understand what I'm talking about, like, you know, there's just stuff like the pillows on the bed. When we first got married, I was like, what are all these fucking pillows? Like, so that came from a real place, you know, and she's not like, we have to have that, you know, so it becomes me going kind of like 10 years ago, me in my head, if we were married then. And she's been okay with most of the jokes, you know. I don't think she listens to the album.
You mean she hasn't listened to it once?
Dude, I don't think she's listened to my first one either.
What's that about? What do you think that is?
She doesn't care about comedy. I mean, I don't know.
But isn't that intrinsic? Like you are comedy and
I'm not comedy. What is that? I am comedy. Hear me fart.
No, but I mean, it's your whole life.
That's not my whole life. You know what I mean? I like baseball. I watch hockey. I fucking, you know what I mean? I like hiking. I go camping. I like going on drives. I like Christmas. I don't know.
How do you and your wife, how do you connect? What is the thing that brings you together?
We actually met at a comedy show. This is how we connected originally.
Right. But ever since then, she won't watch you at all?
No. That's not, she's seen me on TV. She's come to shows. It's not like she doesn't support me. It's
just enough already?
She's not putting my fucking album in when she's driving around going, oh, what's this dickhead have to say? Like, she listens and sees me every day. She gets way more original bits with me running around in my underwear than she's going to get listening to, you know, stuff that she's already heard a million times. Like, I was fortunate to be connected with a comic named Dan Cummins, who takes me out on the road a great deal, actually, and has been very helpful in kind of my career and kind of maintaining steady work. But we've been fortunate where Nicole could fly to shows, like if I was doing Nashville or whatever, like fun cities, you know. So she's been able to come out, and like Dan's wife will like sit through multiple sets of his and like say, I like this joke, I like that joke, I like that. Nicole's not going to do that. She's seen the jokes, she's seen Dan's set. She'll watch one show in the weekend and then she'll want to be going out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I completely understand. It'd be like, I wouldn't want to do that either. You know?
Yeah.
Sit through the same, me going, hey, marriage is crazy, my wife's a lunatic. Like, while she sits there, I'm like, okay.
Right. Right.
So it's,
but
like,
it's
again,
interesting because Jim Gaffigan, like most of his comedy is around food and his family, and his wife, I think she writes with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's, everybody's different, but I don't want that. Like, I didn't marry somebody. Our first date, I was like, do you want to be a comedian at all or an actor? And she was like, what? No. And I go, there can only be one needy piece of shit in this relationship, and it's got to be me. And she was like, great. Do you want this half of my hamburger? I was like, yes.
So, how you doing on time? Are you okay?
Got a lot going on, dude.
What's that?
I got a lot going on.
Okay. So, what a lot of comedians, you know, have different experiences with not getting a reaction. Some comedians feed on it. They like it. They enjoy the awkward, the strange, the silence. How do you deal with it when it happens?
I think I've gotten a lot better, you know, over the years with like being okay with silence and like people not have, I mean, you can do the same exact jokes 2 times in a night, early show, late show, and the reactions can be completely different. So I used to get really frustrated when I was like, I just told these jokes an hour and a half ago and they killed. What is wrong with everybody?
Right.
But it's not what's wrong with everybody. Humor is subjective. Late shows tend to be drunker. I mean, I've gotten better with kind of going with the flow of the room rather than like, these are my jokes, this is what I got to do. You know, I'll still try to get through my material because that's how I fill the time. But if like the late show is getting rowdy or something weird is happening, you know, I'll go with that. You know what I mean? I'll address it. We'll talk about it. I'm not going to like try to force my jokes over people ranting about something else. You know what I mean? Like, and this, I'm talking about polite interruptions. I'm not talking about heckling and dumbasses or whatever. But so I guess now, if there's a lot of silence, I've always addressed it. I've always addressed, and early on, I didn't do well a lot. And I would always go, wow, this is great. I'm eating shit or whatever. Right. And I had one guy say to me one night, he goes, man, I've seen you a couple of times, dude. You're very funny when you bomb. And I was like, oh, weird thing to, it's a weird compliment to what? But I think he meant it in a generally, in a nice, he meant it nicely or as a, I don't know. But I kind of took that as like, okay, so, because I've seen people up there eating shit and never, ever mentioning it. And you're like, dude, you've got sweat pouring down your face. You're just going to try to do your next joke? Dude, talk about, like, just be a little bit more in the moment and be like, hey,
acknowledge the awkwardness.
Because to me, and again, that stems from me always making myself the butt of a joke. Like, well, this guy didn't like that. This guy doesn't like me. This guy wants to punch me in the face. Like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of annoying shit is like, I would just kind of talk about eating it on stage and people would like, okay, yeah. And then I would try to bring it around and try to make it funny and try to do, and with a joke, you know what I mean? I tried to give it some sort of form of a comedy set in my head, but didn't always work like that.
Right. So, you know, I in preparation for this, I was thinking about why I love comedy. And one of the things that I thought about, and I didn't have a realization until I asked you to do this. And the realization that I had was, my father, he was a comedian, and we have a strange, we have a strange relationship.
Tumultuous.
Yeah, that's a good word. But it made me think, my father, for various reasons, he had difficulty telling me the truth. And because of that, it created this insanity. It was like being gaslit. And, I'd ask him something and I go, remember when you said this? And he said, I didn't say that. And being, a kid, it always, I'm like, am I losing it? Am I stupid? And, but one thing that I knew that was genuine was when my father laughed, when he watched like Young Frankenstein, you see behind me, or something. It was the most genuine thing, and it
Hard to
was
fake a
real.
laugh.
What's that?
Hard to fake a laugh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, his laugh was, it was funny too. It was a funny laugh, and it was a real laugh, and it was filled with joy and release of tension and anger and all the stuff. And it was just a beautiful thing to hear. And I didn't think about that. I haven't thought about it until I had asked you to be on this. And I was just thinking about the power of what, a joke can do, how it can just change the entire atmosphere of any place or any person. And Trevor Noah's got a great story on comedians in cars getting coffee, where he's talking to Seinfeld about his I think it was his father or grandfather making a joke to a South African policeman, and it just it was just beautiful, and it reminded me of what comedy can do. And what has there been any experiences that you've had that you're like, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I crave this.
Yeah, I think early on it was like I loved it, and it was just a way for me to go out, drink beers, hit on chicks, and tell fart jokes with my friends, and just kind of be out and feeling like I was doing something. And then at a certain point, I remember thinking, oh, I could probably do this for real if I just like focused a little more, didn't drink before shows, kind of made some adjustments. And from there started finding my voice. And then just the shift of thinking, like when people laugh, like when you can see somebody laughing or you can hear them laughing at something you just said, like we were talking, like, they're not faking it. They don't know you. They have no reason to fake a laugh at you. You're in a bar, you're telling jokes in the dark or whatever. But like thinking about how stressful and how hard my day could be, and then really looking at my day and going, you got it pretty fucking easy, guy. And then realizing that people go out to comedy clubs because they need entertainment. They want to laugh. They want to have a good time. For the most part, that's why people go.
Mm-hmm.
And when that kind of shift happened, I don't know what I can do to really give back in terms of, like, I'm not an educator, I'm not going to be a firefighter. I can't, I'm not going to run for public office. I'm not going to, but I can do this thing where even though 98% of this country doesn't know who I am on a name basis, there are people that are like, dude, you're my favorite comedian, or I love this bit of yours, or this made me laugh so hard I spit milk out my nose. Or, I mean, like you said, just knowing that people are getting that snippet of release that's like laughter, you know what I mean? I mean, think about the times when you've laughed super hard, how good it felt. Like the whole thing is a weird, it's kind of selfish. It's like, I want to do comedy because it feels good to make other people feel good. You know what I mean? So like, I want to feel good. And what makes me really feel good is when a room full of people I don't know are laughing at something I said. I don't know if that makes me a weirdo, but it's a connection. It's something that happens in the room, and I really like it, So I don't know that I actually can pinpoint one time where I was like, oh, this laugh. I mean, I can remember, like I said, structuring jokes and being like, having a joke people like kind of listening, following along. And then when what I had written as the punchline hit, them coming along with me and laughing, and being like, okay, at least I'm figuring out how to construct jokes. Like my dad saw me very early on in my stand-up, endeavors. And then, probably 8 years in, and the second time he saw me, he was like, oh, you've really gotten stronger. You've developed, you're a better storyteller, you're more comfortable. It's like he could see the difference of the progression. But again, I think it was once I figured out I could kind of construct jokes, and I never wrote as much as I wanted to or as I should have. I didn't turn over material as quickly as a lot of other comics, but I did change jokes and feel like even though for the most part, there were nights when you phone it in, whatever, but for the most part, I never told the same joke the same way twice. There's always something different because I wasn't the guy that was going to memorize the joke. So if something popped into my head in the middle of it, I would say that too.
Right. Yeah, I just keep thinking about, the power of what comedy can do. It can just cut through so much sadness and sorrow, or cut down hypocrisy or facades of lies. And George Carlin was brilliant at that. It pointing out
Charlie
hypocrisy.
Chaplin,
Yeah.
I mean, like you can pick at the thing that is like oppressing people. You can really, comedy is strong, man, because there is the power to like make real change with it. And then there is a power to take away pain,
Yeah.
albeit temporary, but like those are pretty strong things. You know what I mean? Like, and comedian to me is like kind of the last, especially the guys still doing one night stands and driving around and living in their cars and stuff. But like, is the last vaudeville, like vaudeville, these guys would roll into town. Oh, we got to do our shtick here at the old, crap house saloon with a bunch of drunk assholes who all they want to do is bang hookers, and they're going to have guns and they're mad and whatever. It's the same, like, I do a show in Malta, Montana, where I thought I was definitely going to die in the hotel. It was so creepy. But like, those things are still like, they just feed it. You know what I mean? Like you come back from those trips with great stories and you're like, oh my God, we almost got murdered. And it just becomes funny. You know what I mean? But it really is like the last, like, kind of vaudevillian type lifestyle.
I don't know what happened to this, but Trevor, when I was visiting in 2017, he showed me the video of you and Matt on the road.
My God. Yeah.
Did you do anything with that?
No, do you remember when current TV was a thing?
Uh-huh.
I knew a girl who I had PA'd with on the Jamie Kennedy Experiment. She had gone on to work at Current TV. She sent me what were those, what were they called? A flip cam? Like those chunky block, they held 30 minutes of footage, and then you had to download it into a computer, and then so she sent me one of those cameras, and she goes, what would you think about doing like a travel comedy show? And I go, I've set up a run of one-nighters with this idiot that I know. We can shoot the whole thing and just do nonsense. And they were like, yeah, that's great. Do that. And I was like, okay. So we did shit like, we went to the Potato Museum in Idaho. We went to a couple random places. We did a bunch of weird shit. We pretended to have a show outside with no audience. And then we gave all the footage to Trevor, and we're like, hey, can you do anything with it? Right. It's like in true form, we just shot a bunch of nonsense and then gave him the footage, and he made something that was at least presentable. But were like, by the time we'd gotten to them, I don't think Current TV was a thing anymore. They were like, hey, we're here, and we're gone. It was pretty quick, and she had moved on.
But it's not on YouTube or anything, is it?
No. It's pointless. It's nonsense. People would look at it and not know what the fuck they were looking at. Right. We did it with a purpose in mind, and the footage doesn't show any of that.
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was funny, and I'd have to look at it again to
You know
assess
us.
if.
That's why you think it's funny.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's because I know you or it was actually. I mean, there was the like the being in the gym and doing comedy, and that was like a high school gym or something like that.
Dude, that was insane. That was in Coalinga. A super depressed they're like, oh, you're going to perform at the college. Then until you realize it's the summer, there's no students. It's all people from town. The guy was charging $25 and nobody in town. People are living on food stamps. They like don't have $25 to spend on 4 hacks they've never seen in some shitty gym show. Like it was insane, dude. Those are some of the worst shows I've ever done. That run. Truly
But
awful.
I want to look at that again. I'm going to ask Trevor for that.
And then
because
that guy ripped us off. He never paid us for those shows.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I remember that.
It was a nightmare. So I tried to get out of the other shows that I was supposed to do because the money that I was supposed to make was supposed to get me to these other shows. And I was like, I'm losing money doing comedy. I feel like a fucking moron.
But I thought there was some brilliant stuff in that. I'm going to look at it again. But, what I'd like to do is do a part 2 with you.
Sure.
And
where are they now? Still in his living room.
Right. Exactly. So what I want to do is kind of close this with something, because I feel like with you, since I've known you, I remember there was, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I think there was a lot of anger in the beginning. You had a lot of anger, and there's something changed over the years where you became more vulnerable. I don't know if you started reading, Buddhist text, but something changed, and your comedy changed in a way that was really beautiful to watch. And I think I'd like you to do just one bit, and I please do it. Is do the bit about Oscar, because I think it really encapsulates what comedy can do, and I love that bit. And if you could do it and close on that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that bit is the reaction I get from that bit is even people I went to college with who see me now are like, I really like how you end your show, because it's really on a. All right, so I'll do the bit and then we'll talk briefly about it. I don't want to ruin it, but the bit is I was driving around trying to go to a birthday party that I was invited to, some friend's girlfriend. Hang on, I'm going to cough. So I get invited to this birthday party. I already don't want to be there. I'm driving around looking for parking. Can't find any parking. I'm getting pissed, punching the steering wheel, yelling. As I whip around this corner, there's a dude in a wheelchair on the corner of the intersection waving at people. And I see this guy, and it was like kind of what you're talking about. Like my anger went from, God, fuck, I can't find parking, to, I can't find parking, and that's why I'm mad. This guy can't walk, and he's waving at people. So I feel like a huge piece of shit, and I kind of just come back down to earth. And then I, as a kind of I was gonna kind of tip my cap to this guy. I went to wave back at him, like, hey, thanks for waving. And as I do, we make eye contact, and I see that he's not waving at people like, hey, how you doing? He's like waving people down. He needs assistance. So I'm like, oh, this can't be good. So I pull over, double park. Still no parking. And I get out and I start to literally jog across the street to ask him what's up. But as I get halfway across the street, I can see him in the dark, and he's like legitimately very, very, very homeless. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of back up because I didn't want to run up too close on him just because I didn't know. So I kind of back up and I'm like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, the battery on my wheelchair died. I've been stuck here for 3 hours. So I was like, holy shit, dude. So out loud, I was like, what can I do to help you? And in my head, I was like, just short of picking you up and putting you in my car, because that ain't never going to fucking happen, right? I want to be helpful, but me scooping up homeless people, throwing in the back seat, got a real get out vibe, right? Is he collecting them? Is he taking their clothes? What's he doing? So I just didn't want, I was like, what can I do, man? He's like, well, if you could push my chair up to the auto zone, up the street, I'll charge my battery and I can be on my way. And I was like, great idea. But then I'm like, it's 10:30 on a Tuesday night. Like AutoZone isn't open, but I don't know what else to do now. And we're stuck here. So lock my car, leave it double parked, get behind the wheelchair, and I start to push him. Now, I get him off the curb. We get kind of into the middle of the intersection because I have to cross the street with him to go up the next side, the other sidewalk. And he's not like that obese. He's not like a 600-pound man or anything. He's not obese. And I'm not like super out of shape or weak, but I can't get the chair to go anywhere. Cars are honking. We're kind of stuck. At one point, my frustration, I go, hey, just get up. I'll carry the chair. And he was like, well, I can't. I go, right, your legs. So he leans down and clicks up the brake, and I take him all the way across the street. It's like, oh, there we go. Get him up the sidewalk. We're headed up to the AutoZone. It's quiet. It's awkward. Well, we don't know each other. So I make small talk. I'm like, hey, man, what's your name? He's like, my name is Oscar. What's your name? I said, my name's John.
You say it like that?
I said, yeah. I said, my name's John. And he goes, the next words out of his mouth, he goes, John, I don't know if you're gay or not, but I'll suck your dick for this. And I just started laughing. I like literally looked at him. I go, hey, dude, I don't think this is a dick sucking favor. Okay. And I started immediately thinking about all my friends people I've known since high school, college, helping them move across town, up and down flights of stairs with no elevators in the building. I've helped people I've known my whole life move. All I've ever gotten was like a little bit of pizza and maybe a couple of beers, right? Meanwhile, I've pushed this stranger 20 feet. And he's like, flop your penis in my mouth, dude. It'd be great. And I was like, yeah, I'm like laughing. And at this point, he's laughing. And he's like, well, okay, if you change your mind, though, let me know. And I go, Oscar, if I change my mind, I can promise you that you'll be the first and only person to ever know, right? I'm not going to hire a skywriter. I'm not making T-shirts. Like, it'll be between me and you. And he laughs, and he's like, okay. So now we're kind of like having we're having a funny rapport back and forth, right? He gets it. We're laughing. We get up to the AutoZone. It's closed, right? So now I can't leave him in a strip mall and be like, we tried. I have to go to this fucking party I don't want to go to. So I take him to, there's a Carl's Jr. kitty corner of this place. It's packed. It's a Tuesday night. I'm like, fat fucks. So I push him in there, and in order to make it seem like we're old chums, like this is how my brain is working at the time, I start having a loud conversation. It's like two loud buddies walking in, but no one cares. So they all just look over like, what are you doing? And like, I'm like, right on. And Oscar doesn't, I'm just yelling his name. He's like looking over his shoulder. He's like, what's happening? And the manager comes out. He's like, is everything okay? I go, yeah, my buddy's battery, he's got to charge it, And the manager was super cool. He's like, yeah, okay.
So in essence, you were crying out for help in a subconscious way.
Maybe I was like, somebody take this guy off my hands, I guess. Yeah. So the manager comes out, charges it, and I'm like, great, dude, I'm gonna get out of here. And then I realize that he's like in a wheelchair that doesn't work, in a restaurant watching people eat, So I'm like, let me buy you a hamburger. So I buy him a hamburger, shake his hand out of force of habit, probably shouldn't have done that, patted him on the shoulder, a little dusty, and then I left. I was like, hey man, good luck. He's like, you too, man. And that was it. So I always end by saying that was the last time I ever saw Oscar. I swear. But I think about that guy on a regular basis. I think when you look at the way the world is now, there are people that are angry because of the things they don't have. Meanwhile, that could have been this guy. He could have been super angry at what he didn't have, his legs, a house. You know what I mean? Like, this guy was dealt a hand that, whether it was for choices that he made, mistakes, accidents, whatever, you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, right? So this guy's still able to laugh, smile, have a good time, be funny. You know what I mean? This guy's not thinking about the things he doesn't have. He's grateful for the things that he does have. So if more people were like Oscar, we'd be better off as a society. If more people were willing to give blowjobs for menial favors, there would be no more anger in the world. There'd be no angry people at the DMV. There'd be no angry people in dentist waiting room. There'd be no angry cops. There'd be no angry fire. Everybody would just be a line of people over here going, hey, and then a line of people over here waiting to get their dick sucked, and everyone else can go to Canada. And then I say, take that with you guys. It's like one to grow on or something. But that is a real story. And all of that is legit. That all happened. Like he and I started laughing. I go, dude, no, you don't. I'm just pushing your wheelchair. You don't have to give me a blowjob for it, dude.
See, I know you said you couldn't be a politician, but I think you could with that platform.
That's what I say. Yeah, vote for me in 2020. Everyone gets a blowjob.
There you go. See, that's your platform. And I think you'd win.
Well, maybe now. Who knows?
But yeah, I just, I think that's a wonderful joke to end on. And, it's the evolution of your comedy, because I remember at the Derby, you had a bit about, if somebody found you and you died in your apartment.
Was that? Was it?
It's the one about the Olsen twins.
Oh yes, 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 yeah.
And it's just, I that was the angry time.
Oh,
And
died doing what he loved.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
bit.
dick in a warm pumpkin. Yeah, 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 yeah. But that you're right though. The difference is that there was a lot of anger in that
Right.
first album. Like it's not like I'm yelling, but there's a growth to the second album, which I think it would be weird if there wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 10 years apart, and you're like the same shit.
Yeah, but it was really beautiful to see the transition and the growth of, coming from anger and then going into this kind of, retro, this your perspective of this situation and finding beauty and comedy in it. And it's, I mean, that could have gone really odd. You know what I mean? After he'd said, "I'll suck your
Oh yeah,
dick," that could have
sure.
been real weird. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and maybe like 10 years ago, 10 years before, you know what I mean? It would have been even weirder, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because who knows what state of mind I would have been in. But I do think at a certain point, you have to look, this is just across the board as a human being. Your first 25, 30 years are like sort of trying to figure it out. And then at a certain point, you have to decide who you want to be. And that doesn't change for me when I go on stage. Do you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not like, I'm Jon Huck here, but on stage, I'm wacky punch down guy. Like, no, I'm like, I made the change in myself, and then that came out in my comedy because that's now who I am, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're being the comedy that you wish to see in the world.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm being the laughs I wish to get. Wow.
Yeah. So listen, man, what I'd like to do is do part 2, talk more about your acting career, pornography.
I did a voiceover in a porno. Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you want to talk about that, but
My
I'm
name's in
glad
the
you
credits,
mentioned it.
dude. My name's in the
Right.
credits.
Right. So we'll talk about that and other things. And thank you, man, for being here. And so how can people find you?
I am on Twitter at JONHUCK. I am on Instagram at JON_HUCK. And my website is johnhuck.me, M-E. You can find my CDs there. You can find old episodes of my podcast, which is now not happening.
Wait a minute. What about, we forgot about Hollywood Anonymous, your podcast?
No, we don't do that anymore. We stopped.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit! When did this happen? I thought I could have sworn I saw it relatively
Probably
recently.
5 months ago, 4 months
Oh,
ago.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's
I
all
didn't
right.
mean.
No. It's okay. It's all good. It was,
Uh,
he's good. My co-host has a family.
yeah. Right.
The pandemic was not helping anybody. It was, if he wasn't into it, it's time to end it. Not a big deal. Everything kind of ends.
Right.
It'll be all right. I'm sure I'll start another podcast eventually that no one will listen to.
But you had some celebrities on there, didn't you?
I mean, yeah, we had some people that it was all, based on people we knew and stuff, and people I reached out to. Like Horatio Sands is a super nice guy. Like once I reached out to him, he was like, "Yeah, sure, man, I don't care."
Yeah.
He came over. He was super cool. Like Brian already knew Rob Corddry and Nate Corddry, and so we had Louis Anderson. Brian was friends. Like most of our more famous guests came from knowing Brian. Brian's been around and in the business for years. So he's known these people forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was fun. But no, we don't do that anymore. But there is like other clips, and my Germany story that I did on This Is Not Happening is, you can find links to that on YouTube and stuff.
Right. And your Comedy Central is on YouTube as well, right?
I don't know that my live at Gotham, I don't think is, but that was 2009. I did something in 2015 that's on there for not Comedy Central. It's called Access. Channel was Access, but it was a live comedy thing that was done from Gotham.
Hmm.
So that's online, very easy to find.
Cool.
Just Google Jon Huck loses his pants, and that will take you to all you need to see of me online.
And Compromise Maturity, you can find it on Spotify and iTunes, correct?
Yep, and Amazon, and if you just go to my website, you can buy it there. It'll take
All
you to
right, awesome.
all the places.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much. This is The
Thank you,
Blind
man.
Man in Black. Thank you, John. We will see you next time, and it's going to have an awkward ending here, so you got to help me and tell me if the
Yeah, if it's not recording.
yeah, maybe it wasn't recording the
No,
entire
it was.
time.
It
All
was.
right. All right. So, all right, everybody. You can find me blindmeninblack.com, Apple Podcast, iTunes, and YouTube. All right. See you later. Be good. Be safe. Be healthy. Okay, this is where it's awkward. It doesn't always like
Still recording.
this always I don't